Well, South Africa has faced growing pressures at home as well as abroad amid global tariff tensions, economic uncertainty as well as domestic challenges. And these developments have all tested the country's economic resilience as well as policy direction, with implications for trade, investment and growth. Joining us to further unpack this is economist Mr. Thabiso Mongane. Thabiso, it's a great pleasure. Season's greetings to you, sir. Thank you so much for your time. So let's start with the overall performance, right, of South Africa's economy this year. It was projected to modestly grow at around 1.1, between 1.1 and the 1.2% ranges. How did we fare according to your latest data? I know, of course, mining output increased the most with a whopping 2.3%.
Well, thank you for having me, Alicia. I think that it's really fair to say that our economic growth has really been underwhelming, really with regards to the projected outlook that we were meant to have actually achieved at this point. We were supposed to really reach the 1.1 to 1.7 mark, but only managed to reach 0.6% of economic growth as per GDP. So it's really fair to say that it's been a quagmire of a very tumultuous year from a geopolitical standpoint that really played out on the economic stage with the tariffs, the US tariffs having seeped through and given us a shock. But really seeing that the South African government, specifically in conjunction with South African businesses, have managed to hold the fort. So it's been interesting to really see how that's actually played out. But we're still way off in terms of our own growth outlooks. And this is really contingent on the fact that we've got the highest unemployment rate that we've seen in decades. And if we don't really then turn the corner with regards to really improving our economic growth rate, we're going to be losing jobs faster than we can actually create them.
You know, Thabiso, factors contributing to the slow pace of growth, then please unpack them for us. We know that at the top, as you've just said, still central to key service delivery issues from right here at home. We long had an energy crisis, right? We're still dealing with it almost on the other side of it, all right? But before we even start blaming the geopolitical factors like your tariffs and so on, what are we not getting right as a country to ensure stable as well as consistent growth year on year?
So we know that the government, specifically through the presidency, has really been on an entire reform mission through Operation Vulindlela. And the specific areas that have been looked at there, freight rail, energy, manufacturing, and other spaces. But we've really seen there is that we've really seen that there's been a really slow reform implementation with regards to policy that would essentially then enable us to grow at the rate that we really need to see. The good part about it is that we've seen how the presidency has really gotten things right in terms of the energy space. That is one thing that we can really then say that has been a partial victory for us. But there are things that still need to really then be reformed. Our ports, freight and rail, we've seen how deals are really coming through there to factor those off to private operators. And we're hoping that that would then speed up the pace. One of the key things that we really need to ask ourselves here is that are we actually then moving these structural reforms faster or quick enough for us to really then benefit from an economic upturn as we're going through this transition, if that economic upturn should actually happen? And the honest answer is that we're not. So it really then does really lie at the helm of policy implementation and how that really needs to be given a serious bolstering from our end.
And it always sounds the same every year, right, Thabiso? But how much of a direct impact, especially directly, I mean, here in South Africa, are these tariff hikes, Thabiso? I know that the uncertainty around AGOA and the drawback in funding for some key sectors is still quite a sticky point, right? As these moves have basically left those sectors having to now play catch up in an already volatile trading environment, forcing us as a country to further explore new strategic trade partners, something we long should have explored.
I mean, Alicia, that's a very, very good point. In the good times, I think we've been so lackluster and complacent in really looking at our trade composition as a country from an economic standpoint. And that really is caused by the lack of strategic, and I would actually say strategic competence within the specific departments that are responsible for that. But I mean, if we look at the direct impact, we're looking at the manufacturing space, we're looking at automotive space, we're looking at the agricultural space, which are going to be directly impacted on the basis of the fact that those are our gross highest domestic exports to the United States. And we're already seeing how reports are coming out from the Eastern Cape specifically, which are the hubs, which is the hub in actual fact for automotive industry, agriculture, and manufacturing, where there's about 30,000 direct jobs right now that are at risk. And we're talking about an economy that really, or domestic or regional economy in that space, that is really responsible for about 115,000 jobs, specifically within agriculture, the automotive space, and manufacturing. So already we can see that the risk of this really playing out into the unemployment or the labor markets is really about to put us at loggerheads with what we are then deeming as very little impact on with regards to the tariffs on us as a country. And I think that we should be worried more than anything. We cannot afford to lose any more jobs because we're not creating them fast enough for us to then, project them onto our own GDP growth rates. And that is the biggest risk that we're really talking about in this particular instance. We really need to at least create about 1 million jobs in this point in juncture. And we're really then at threat of losing about 115,000 of them. So, I mean, the proof is in the pudding, and so far so good. It's not really tasting that good.
I mean, looking at the key results from the 2024 agricultural survey here, Thabiso, where it says commercial agriculture actually created about 25,614 jobs between 2023 and 2024, which was of basically the 3.1 increase. And also, I suppose, basically being the biggest hiring sector within, of course, the multi-industry. So what's your overview then as we step into the new year? I mean, there has been some significant gains. We spoke about it earlier, like being removed from the grey list. But the issue of corruption at higher level as well is currently what's making the country a non-attractive investment option. What do you predict in terms of our growth and economic trajectory? We have a serious debt as well as high cost of living crisis right now to consider.
I think there's a great economic reconfiguration at play here, and there's both a narrow pathway to success as well as very trepidatious territory that we're going to have to navigate in doing that. The quarterly labor survey statistics that came back reporting that agriculture was one of our highest employment areas or employment industries within the country. We need to really be able to assess whether there was a knee-jerk reaction out of potentially panic buying from export markets with regards to the current geopolitical, climate, and whether that was actually the bolster in that, or whether that was sustained through considerable amounts of hard efforts from the industry itself to reconfigure itself and find new trade partners. And it's a tale of both things actually being true at the same time. And that is exactly why those numbers really pulled through the way they actually then did pull through. We're seeing that, for instance, we are just reconfiguring a deal right now with China to really then export some of our peaches, apricots, and all of those nut fruits that we've actually got into that market. And that deal on its own should really then create opportunities in that specific agricultural vertical. But at this point in juncture, we're really then, supposed to really be careful in being too forward and celebrating, because what we really need to look at is how do we actually reconfigure our entire trade composition, find alternative trade partners through Asia, through the AFCTFA, and really then become a regional manufacturing port, specifically for the African continent where we are.
Wow, quite a lot of work to get through. And I'm thinking, Thabiso, we've barely got enough time to start thinking about how much further reforms are actually needed to be implemented at this late stage, because we're starting a new year. So hopefully things can change at the start of the first quarter. That was Mr. Thabiso Mongane, who's an economist, giving us there some sobering reflection of our economic standing as a country as we wrap up this year.